Okay, we're live. Hey, everybody. I just made Donnie break out. Just like that, dude. There we are. Oh my God. Thanks everybody for joining us today. I really do appreciate you supporting the channel. It means a lot to me. I see everybody, all the regulars are here today. Thank you guys so much. I met this guy, Donnie Wong, on the internet. Sounds so creepy, but I spotted him. I think I spotted you on TikTok or Instagram maybe a year or so ago. And I just,
Yeah.
your views, you're so well spoken. You have just a thing that needs to be said. And this channel is really about bringing people on that have different opinions than the average sort of community space, or it doesn't even need to be LGBTQIA poo poo. It can be just in general. This whole sort of super liberal space has done, I think, damage to people like you and I who just sort of want to live our lives and be out there. And also we want to have different opinions and we want to have conversations. So this is Danny Wong, everybody. And why don't you, I'm sorry, Donnie Wong. And why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are?
So first of all, thank you for the introduction. I'm not actually as well spoken as I come across because you know what it's like in this biz. We can edit the same sentence like 100 times. I come across very eloquent, and people always ask me, "How do you do it?" It's like editing. When I'm so nervous about actually speaking live because I've done this. I've had 1 or 2 live chats before where I come across like a bumbling ninny, and I've just totally destroyed my image without that edit feature.
And no, I'm telling you, you are. Also, I think also it's your accent. You come out so beautifully.
That creates a false air of intelligence.
But you are intelligent. Honestly, I'm very picky about the people I hang out with. Number one. Number two, no, don't do yourself a disservice that way. I think that you really are, and you just say things. I don't know. They just really caught my old brain because I got sick and tired of hearing people just say the same thing over and over. And if you didn't agree with them, you just stood out. You just stood out in the sea of the same narrative.
Right. And you're funny, you said the maybe accidentally old brain, and that's me. I feel like I'm an old brain. This is because I'm a Gen Xer. I was born in 1972, and I remember a time when life was so different. And I'm bi, so I'm part of the LGBT, but it wasn't an issue. Like it was what we did. It wasn't who we are. You know what I mean? And that before it became all about labels, and it was I just remember the days when what we were fighting for was just acceptance and to be seen as normal and the same as everyone else. And now it feels like it's going the opposite direction, and it's about being different from everybody else.
That's right.
So that's actually one of the things I talk about a lot on my socials, because I, like you, I've been talking about woke culture and identity politics and the LGBTQ plus alphabet soup, all this stuff over the last few years as I've been seeing it getting weird. And I started around the time of COVID. That was when I started making content, and I grew very rapidly on TikTok. I didn't expect it. It just exploded. And then I joined Instagram and most recently YouTube. And on Instagram, I got my account banned about 6 months ago. I had 78,000 followers, and then just one day, suddenly, I was in the middle of posting, and then suddenly I was like, your account is, I couldn't access my account suddenly. And I tried to appeal. I couldn't appeal it.
Oh my God.
I just had a message pop up on my screen that I've committed a serious infringement of the community guidelines, but they didn't tell me what it was. I wanted to see, okay, so what was the post? They wouldn't. I clicked through to some link, but it didn't lead to anything.
Yeah.
I followed the appeals process, which was just like basically you could just type something and then press a button. Nothing happened. Never heard anything back. And then I just thought, never mind. I'm not going to waste my time with it. I just started again from scratch. But thankfully, I've still got my TikTok audience. And
amazing.
Yeah. But I was so I started doing this around the time of COVID, and then I
Yeah.
found like, and I also on the side I have an OnlyFans, which actually that's what got me into being a content creator. It was like
Sure.
that's where I got my first kind of audience, and then
Yeah.
that gave me a platform to then um, go on to well TikTok and Instagram.
Yeah.
Initially, I was just promoting my OnlyFans, but then
Okay.
I started just speaking up about things that I was witnessing and things that I wanted to question
Yeah.
because I felt like being part of the LGBT and I amassed this big audience from the OnlyFans and Twitter
Yeah.
stuff. Um, I was seeing like a lot of weird um, anger and
Hmm.
really like extreme political division. And so I started speaking about that. And then I found I rapidly grew on TikTok. But then at the same time, they
Wow.
tried to cancel me. So I lost thousands of followers on Twitter within a week. For the first time I talked about gender ideology, and everyone was like saying,
Wow.
I supported you, and um,
Wow.
I'm so disappointed that you hate us." And it's like I've not said anything hateful. I'm just asking. I just asked questions about the two main issues was the um, biological men in women's sports and um, and child sort of pressure on children to make
Great.
decisions that I just feel they're too young to commit to, and I felt that I just was asking questions about it. That was all. I didn't
Yeah.
say I've never ever expressed any anti-trans sentiment, but I got called transphobic. But I've ne- the reason I say a lot of things that I do is because I actually care about trans
I
people.
know.
I've always known trans people growing up. I had trans aunties, like in Hong
Yeah.
Kong, we we'd go for these big banquet dinners all the time, and there would be like a trans auntie or two sat at the table, but their identity wasn't even an issue. Like
That's right.
nobody cared that they were trans, and it's a very different kind of mentality in Asia when it comes
Yes.
to gender ideology. The it's just the like I suppose it's like the old school kind of trans.
It
Oh, you to be
is.
trans. You're just trying to be a
Yeah.
you born as a man. You're trying male trying to live as a woman, and that's it. So everyone just
Right.
accepts you as a woman,
Yeah.
and um, nobody talked about it and or questioned it. So yeah, I grew up with that, and then also in my clubbing days, I was a raver, and um, in the
Awesome.
90s, and
Awesome.
if you're Chinese and you're in the club scene, you would have known like a bunch of lady boys and stuff like that. They were like my
Right.
best friends. I had
That's
the
right.
best times in my life
That's right.
partying with lady boys, and I've been very close to some of them. And I know that people try and diminish that. They're like, it's like saying I have a black friend, during BLM, and it completely dismisses the meaningful connection that you had with people and the
That's
things
right.
that you've learned from them that have changed your
Right.
whole life. You
That's
can't just
right.
write that off and say it doesn't mean anything because it does. To
Well,
be very close to somebody and understand them and relate to them. And I was the one that would defend them against people attacking them. I would have like got beaten up over, any somebody hurting one of my lady
right.
boyfriends.
Right. Right. I think I can equate that to also homophobia back in the day. I think
Mhm.
I'm 10
Yeah,
years older than you. The same
yeah,
thing. Like, we got people who were defending us when people would try to gay bash us,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
You
yeah,
did the same thing with the trans
yeah,
people. But this is why I think your story is so profound and so powerful because, they love to use all these tropes, lived experience,
yeah,
diversity, inclusion,
yeah,
blah blah blah, which means literally zero. They're
yeah.
just words. They're actually not applying those words.
Mhm.
You actually have lived experience with actual real trans
Yeah.
people, which I would call I actually distinguish. I don't know if you know this, Donnie, but I distinguish transgender from transsexual.
Oh, I totally understand the distinction. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes, and so
You live as the other gender in every like you born again as as the opposite gender, right? If you're
yeah,
transsexual, and
totally,
it's a
totally.
it's not just like a you just I don't know, like I don't want to be disrespectful and like
You're
cosplay or
not.
but I see a lot of what just looks like cosplay these days, And
well, that's not disrespectful. That's actually fact. And
yeah,
I appreciate that, because that's what I'm trying to do as well. I'm trying to
yeah,
call out and show you the difference.
yeah,
Imagine if there was a bunch of bisexual or even Asian people that were doing things that you don't want to be associated with. Just because
yeah,
you're Asian doesn't mean you have to be associated with all
right.
Asians, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
I think it's or whatever, black or whatever. That's
yeah,
just the part I think that really needs to be distinguished here. Just
yeah,
because you are trans, whatever you are, doesn't mean
mhm,
we're all the same. I'm an elder.
yeah,
I'm a literal elder. 30 years of transition, and
yeah.
they call me transphobic.
That's crazy, isn't it? I mean, and that's how when I first saw you, um, around 21 or 22, you just one of your posts just popped up on TikTok, and I was like, instant follow, because
Right
I
on.
totally get where you're coming from, even though we live in completely different worlds. I
Yes.
We have so much in common. You can just tell right away
Yes.
when, and I think one of the things I admire in you is that you have a lot of strength, like because you
Thank
get
you.
attacked a lot, and so do I. I
Yeah.
get so much hate for saying, because I challenge all kinds of things. I also challenge racial identity politics,
Yes.
like the sort of as a Chinese person,
Yeah.
I've been told white people will never accept you, and stuff like that. And so I challenge that, and then they hate me for it. And so I see that we both have that in common. Like people attack us, but you don't let them get you down. And because we Gen X and Boomer, we're not that weak.
Well,
You can't
because
destroy us
we
with
could
words.
also, because we couldn't be that weak, right?
No,
The society didn't give us a cushion.
no,
Society is
yeah,
giving these young people a cushion,
yeah,
and
yeah.
that is so dangerous. If Oh, it makes me so mad, Donnie, because if you don't make mistakes in your life, okay, if you
Yeah,
don't, you will never grow. You will never
yeah,
grow. I can
yeah.
tell you, I've made so many embarrassing
Oh,
mistakes in my life, or
absolutely.
bad mistakes, or just things I wished I never
Yeah,
did. But now
yeah,
I know not to ever make. But if you're cushioning young people's sort of way they walk the world, you're doing a disservice to young. And I
right.
think you and I didn't come from that space. We got
Yeah.
punched in the face,
Oh, yeah,
literally
yeah.
or
And then it gives
figuratively.
you, and I like how you sort of approach this subject with so much humor, because you've got to laugh. Like when it's so ridiculous, and like the best response to hate is to laugh
True.
rather than
True.
to fight back with hate. And
That's right.
and that's how you get people on your side as well. I think just the humanity and
Well, laughing
and
at I speak all over the world. I speak in these events, and with
mhm,
not to LGBT. I don't need to speak there. I speak to people
mhm.
who aren't that, and business people, or whatever.
Yeah,
And I get caught in a place, and they're always just like not sure what they're going to hear. And by the time I leave these events, because I laugh, I make fun, I show things,
yeah,
and people they literally let their guard down. I
yeah,
can speak in front of 500 people. By the time I'm done with that conference, I have made 500 new friends.
yeah.
Just like, dude, I've never heard a trans person say that. I go, because I'm not a trans person. I'm
Yes,
a person.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And I
right.
think that's like the big difference in the way we did identity politics back in the 90s versus now.
Totally,
It
totally.
we embraced our identity,
Hmm.
but it was about finding the commonality between
Right.
all of us in spite of our identity,
Yes,
rather than obsessing over our differences and being in different camps, and it's us
yeah,
versus them, and everybody is in the them camp.
that's
You're
right.
suspicious of them, like automatically. They're like, if they say something that questions any part of your identity, it's immediately taken as challenge or
That's right.
hate. And it's not like, we grew up in a time where we all rinsed each other, didn't we?
Hmm.
Like, and especially if you're in Chinese culture, right?
Hmm.
Whatever is your visible characteristics that makes you different is what everyone is gonna rinse you
Right.
for. You grow up with,
Yeah, that's
like,
right. Like
um,
big nose, or
right,
big lips, or something. Like you have a white
or
person's nose, or
yeah, or like if you're overweight,
oh
your
yeah,
people will just call you fatso, but in a very loving way. We, in Chinese, we call it fei fei
right,
or fei du du. That means like you're so fat, you're cute. We can say these things, and it's not a negative. It's what you
right,
are. But and
right,
we are
right,
poking fun, but lovingly. And I
right.
feel like we've completely lost that in society. That you can't. like if you've got a protection of an identity label around you, nobody can say anything about it. And if they do,
Yes.
they're somehow a bigot. And I think it's been so damaging to everybody because
Everybody,
everybody
not
has an identity.
but what so this is so great because I mean, so many things you're saying just really resonate with me, and I wonder.
Mm,
Well, I have my own idea of how we got to this space, and I think it's a
yeah,
very Western cultural. Maybe it's seeping into the Asian culture now, into
right.
other cultures, but I do really believe it started in the
What is so?
Western.
What is this? Why then? I'm
Why?
curious. Yeah, yeah. You said you have an idea how or why they this.
100% control. I
Yeah.
believe that it's a very easy way to control not only the narrative,
Hmm.
but also to control a group of people. And throughout history, certain situations or movements have used young people to
Hmm.
do the dirty work. So,
Oh yes.
yes, so because young people are very vulnerable, they're sensitive,
Yeah.
so in the trans community, they are really targeting young people, and they
Hmm.
are targeting also young people who might have sort of neurological things going on, like
Oh yeah,
autism,
yeah,
right? They're very much targeting these people, and
yeah,
I think because those people are vulnerable, and so
yeah.
when you get these types of people to get onto a narrative, you can now push this narrative full force because kids will just, that's I learned ski. I learned to snow ski when I was like 8 or 9 years old because you
Hmm.
not fearful. You're not
Hmm.
fearful. It pushed me down the mountain. My dad did. And that's
Yes.
how I learned to snow ski.
Oh my God, I can share that same experience with you because the first time I went skiing, um, I had well, okay, first I took a lesson, right, on the bunny slope, and it was so boring, like, I hardly got anything out of it because it was, like,
Right.
practically flat, and then the next time I went skiing, I went to a proper it was in Vancouver,
Mhm.
Cypress Mountain.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
you take the chairlift up, and then
Yeah.
as soon as you get off chair, you're skiing down that mountain, and so I went from the one lesson bunny slope to having to hurtle down that mountain, and I fell loads and loads of times, but I could by the end of that one day, I could ski quite
That's
well,
that's
and
right.
it's just this. We grew up like covered in bruises and with no health and
Like I
safety,
said, I
and
think I said earlier, you have to make mistakes. I mean,
yeah,
how
yeah,
dare you I have a kid actually, I have a 12-year-old kid, and
yeah,
I'm not gonna help him do shit. Like do it yourself. If you fall off the bike,
yeah,
okay. I'm not into training wheels. You don't need training wheels. Just
yeah,
go
yeah,
for it, right? You got a
yeah,
helmet, you got pads on, and then literally he picked up how to ride a bike really kind of quickly, right? I
yeah,
think we have training wheels,
yeah,
like all past the time you should have training wheels. These kids should have training wheels maybe for the first whatever, but now we have training wheels on these kids for such like into adulthood,
yeah,
basically, right?
yeah,
Right.
yeah, and I agree with you that I think that children, confused children,
Mhm.
have been victimized by this
Right.
ideology,
Totally.
and
Totally.
um, and I've been, I asked myself why, like, what
Yeah.
um, is it about? I thought that is it just the industry wanting to just profit as much as they can, and like if you get children onto, well, first of all, before you do any treatments, you've got to convince them that they're trapped in the wrong body, and
Yes.
then you get them in this pipeline, right? And if you start them
That's
young,
right.
there's like a lifetime of treatment. And I've been thinking, is it that? Is it just profit? Um, and I
Could
don't know
be.
because it seems so crazy to put that before.
That's you just said it. You just said it, Donnie. It
Yeah,
seems so crazy. Do you know
yeah,
people do things to make it look like it's crazy so nobody will go after it? So they're like, I can't be thinking that. You're second guessing. That's
yeah,
gaslighting,
yeah, yeah,
right? You're
yeah, yeah,
second guessing
yeah,
yourself. Like, nope, it's totally normal for a four
yeah.
year old Donnie, a 4 year old. Every day I see somebody say my 4 year old is trans. I'm
I
like,
know.
what?
Yes, yes, I've seen that. Those are the kind of posts I think I saw probably from you because you've done a great job of highlighting those those um, beliefs that. The average person is like, no, that doesn't happen. No, nobody's doing that. But then you find all these people like, no, it's happening.
It's
And
happening.
when you talk about it, like they immediately think that you're attacking all trans people, but we're not, right?
Nope.
It's just like this. You can't say that a child is trans.
Oh my
Like
God, dude.
and I actually, people have said to me many times, how dare you talk on this? It's not yes, you speak on your own thing. Stay in your own lane. You're not trans. You don't know. But the thing is, everyone has a right to have a view on everything. You don't have to be that thing
That's
to have a
right.
view. And no, I'm not trans. However, if I look back to the 7-year-old I was, who I actually wanted to be a girl when I was 7, then if I was 7 today, I would easily have been seduced by this gender ideology and thought, you know, there's a solution to this. And my mom, I know, would have also supported it because she just wanted me to be happy. She used to buy me nail polish and lip
That's totally
gloss
normal.
and
That's totally
hairpins
normal.
and things. And she indulged me because it made me happy. And I know that if she had heard that, if he's unhappy, if he wants to be a girl, there's a solution for that, and there's nothing wrong with it.
That's right.
She would have gone along with it. And um, and I'm very happy in my body now. That was a
You
phase I went
literally
through.
make my point. And how dare, first off, Donnie, how dare they tell you can't speak on it when so many non-trans people speak on it. But here's the hypocrisy of that community. People who agree with the trans narrative, who aren't trans, are able to say it. But the minute you're not trans and you have a different opinion, you're transphobic. You see, I can literally highlight the whole hypocrisy of the bullshit. I will never be a part of. I'm not here to lie to you. I'm a female. I'm an ugly ass female, but I'm a female who lives as a dude. And that's why people are so gracious to me and why I can walk the world so easy and nobody gives a shit about me, dude. They're just like, Buck says it how it is, because why do I need to lie?
I can't even imagine you as a female. You're like, I can't imagine it. I just see
Thank you.
you.
Thank you.
And the same with all the trans people that I have known, the transsexuals I've known in my life. I can't imagine them any other way.
That's right.
But I also don't think that, I don't know for sure, but no, I had one or two friends who were, they were like in their 20s, and that was when they were beginning to transition. And so I don't know of anyone who knew when they were a child. Like,
no, dude.
You don't know anything about who you are when you're a child. And I went through so many different phases growing up where I wanted to be this, I wanted to be that. And the girl phase, it did last quite a few years. All my friends were girls, and I couldn't identify with boys. I played with girly toys, and I watched programs, and I identified with the female character. And actually, I have an older brother, right? And he's a year and a half older than me. And when you're a kid, you do a lot of role play, right? And we watched like action kind of anime stuff, and I was always the girl, and he was always rescuing me. So maybe that's where it came about from.
I mean, my God, it's such a normal childhood, and
it was normal.
You grew up. Look at you.
And to think that now there would be like potentially some school teacher telling you that you're in the wrong body.
That's right.
And you just, it's I think it's really sad that I've seen a lot of people that I don't know if did you see that interview that Abigail Schreier did with Joe Rogan?
Oh yeah, she's a very good friend of mine, by the way, Abigail.
Oh, is she?
Very good. We're very close.
She is the one. Watching that interview in 2020 with Joe Rogan is what woke me up to what's happening, and that's what made me start talking about it, because I had noticed this, that there's all of a sudden there's like so many, especially girls, right?
Yes.
And so I felt these are not the same people that, the trans people that I used to know. It's a completely different thing. And for a lot of them, it felt like it was like a rejection of their role in society and a
Yeah,
reaction to patriarchy and all kinds of, it wasn't actually that they wanted to be male.
that's right.
And I started like looking at the stories of people who realized that, and that also they talked about they had other, like they had multiple mental health issues that were
Yes,
completely ignored. And like,
that's
how
right.
can you ignore other issues that are like causing, then call it just gender dysphoria when there's dysphoria in many areas in their
Many
life,
areas.
right?
That's
And
right.
yeah, so that was a real eye opener to me watching that interview.
Well, you
And
know what they started to say, which I started to look. No, I want to be honest here.
mhm,
Probably 10, 15 years ago, I actually did think there was a thing as trans kids. I never thought of myself as a trans kid, but I thought,
yeah,
that's interesting. I wonder if I would have had this done at a young age. I wonder if I wouldn't have gone through all the turmoil that I went through. But
yeah,
as people started throwing stuff, saying things like, Buck, read this, Buck, read this. Don't
yeah,
just make that choice. So I am the guy who will read
yeah,
everything. So I started to read about, no, this
mhm,
actually is really scary. And then I
yeah,
pulled back on my belief and I decided to say, wait a minute here. That's when the trans community really came
yeah,
after me. And I was like, but why are you so mad at me? If
yeah,
I'm somebody who doesn't believe in it, but who's transsexual, why can't I have a different opinion? That's
yeah,
when it started to click to me that
yeah,
there is something bigger going on. And then they just started pushing it, Donnie. And
yeah,
I was like, and then we started getting the detransitioners.
yes,
That was the
yeah,
key for me right there. I'm like,
yeah,
nope, no,
yeah,
this is
yeah.
not right.
And the thing is, right, um, you said that, maybe you believe that there is
Yeah,
such a thing as trans kids, and I
yeah,
think, yeah, I think there are some trans kids because there are perhaps some people who've known all along,
sure,
but
sure,
it's such a tiny percentage, isn't it? I think it's
dude,
less
little.
than 1%. But then when you've got like a classroom where there's like 10 trans kids, that's not actually, some of them, most of them are actually what I was,
Gay,
gay and
they're
lesbian.
gay.
And
That's right.
I saw there was an amazing interview. Um, it was done in the UK with, I can't remember his name. Um, he's a journalist,
Mm.
um, who used to be on GB News. I can't remember his name.
Is
And
it Andrew Sullivan?
Andrew
Is it
Doyle,
Doyle?
and Peter
Doyle.
Boghossian, right?
Yes,
And he was talking about how, the Tavistock Gender Clinic in the UK that got shut down, they had um, they had a running joke at the clinic that at this rate there's going to be no more gays. Like
that's right.
it was like 80% of
Fuck.
the 80% of the people who, are
Yeah,
diagnosed as gender
yeah,
dysphoric as kids, if they're left alone to reach puberty, they grow out of it and they discover that they're actually just gay. And
dude.
I was one of those kids, so I could
That's
totally
right.
imagine that if I had grown up in a different time and somebody said to me, there's a clinic that might be able to help you, my mom would have been like, yes, she just would want me to be happy. And
100%.
yeah,
That's right.
and
That's why
it's
it's
not,
so sad.
it is sad. And also people think that if you talk about this, you challenge it, that you've got something against trans people. And it's it's like, I feel like that's the thing that has made is silenced our entire community. And
Yes,
when you but then when you talk privately amongst other gay, lesbian, and even trans people, like
that's right.
OG trans people, I
That's
have
right.
had many conversations with people who don't agree with things that they've been seeing with
That's
the
right.
child transitioning and with the biological
Mhm.
men and women's sports, but they don't dare say anything because
That's
they
right.
know they will be attacked. And so it takes people like you and me to say it, and we get attacked, and we'll take the punches for everybody. So
Because
and
that's
that's
not community.
what
I am not going to be a part of that, dude. I live in truth and honesty. I don't live in my truth. I live in the actual truth of the world
oh
and
yeah,
reality. And,
yeah,
LGBT community helped me on gay men were the reason I transitioned so great. They came around me, they helped me go to the gym, they told me this is, like literally like teach me how to be butch, and like not that I wasn't a butch woman, but you know what I mean, like just really I got in the Leatherman scene, and they were just so loving to me and so amazing. I'm not turning my back, and I'm not turning my back on women, and I'm not turning my back on bisexual people, and I'm not turning my back on actual real trans people. So that says to me that there's something of a disconnect in that community, and I believe that it has been taken over. I really do. I know it sounds crazy.
Oh no, I absolutely no. It doesn't sound crazy at all. It's clearly been taken over because we reached a point. I feel like at the turn of the millennium where we pretty much had total acceptance. Like
totally.
There was nobody was homophobic anymore or transphobic. Trans wasn't even on the radar. Like I remember in the club scene, there were quite a few trans people. You would always, in any gay club, there were trans people, but nobody had any issues with it. And straight people, it never even entered their mind, whether somebody was trans or not. And I had some good trans friends who were in heterosexual relationships with straight men, and nobody had an issue with it. They were gorgeous, and nobody had an issue with it. They were just living their best life. And I feel that something changed when this ideology came along, and it kind of like, I feel like it was like monetized by the media, because all this anger clicks, and then I feel like also then and I also feel like the Democrat Party kind of jumped on it, and it was like it's been I feel like there's been a psyop put on the LGBT.
You're right.
And use
everything.
As,
dude, I'm I'm an actual liberal. I'm a real in the United States. I used to be. I'm not anymore, but I was part of the Democratic Party from the time I could vote until last election. I was an actual Democrat.
It's so ironic, isn't it? Because people today call me a far right extremist. I was a hippie leftist my whole life. Like, all of our old school hippie leftist values are now suddenly like far right, because it was in our nature as old school leftists to challenge the establishment. But now I feel like the left has become the establishment.
Oh my God. Dude.
If you challenge any of the, like big pharma, big food, gender ideology, like the elite oligarchy, all that kind of stuff. You're like suddenly a far right extremist. So okay, I'll wear that with a badge of honor, far right extremist.
Like, let me get my hat, dude. Like, and now, if you're proud to be an American, you're far right. I'm like, what?
Right? Yeah. And like, if you support farmers, and natural health, just like so many things that surely all those things belonged on the left.
That's right.
Naturally, and the right was like the party of capitalism and extreme greed and profit. It's like switched, and and it happened around somewhere between 2000 and 2010, I think.
You're exact. I was going to mention, as you're saying all this stuff, and anyway, again, Donnie, thank you for being here. You're so great. I just love talking to you. We can just literally hang out
to be talking to you on this.
You're so awesome. But no, because you really give such a great perspective on this, and we can't be the only ones. Like, we really people like us, like-minded, really have to get together and push each other's voice, so that the people out there who aren't part of our so-called community need to see that there's many of us who are very against what's happening. But I was going to tell you, Tumblr. Remember Tumblr?
Yeah.
So Tumblr, in my brain, was really one of the instrumental parts of when I started to see young kids fall into trans identity.
Was it?
And
when was that? What around?
That was like 2010. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Where are we? 2025 now? I think it was around 2010, maybe a little earlier than that. I saw really a shift in the narrative of the community, of the way young people were angry. Like, What are you so angry about? You literally got the internet, kiddo.
Yeah.
Really? Yeah. Yeah.
And the OG trans community, I felt, was a very joyful community.
We were.
It was like the opposite. They
Yeah.
were living their best life,
That's
and
right.
it wasn't about what everybody thinks of you and like everybody's against you and all kind of thing. It was just
Yeah.
do your own thing
That's right.
and fuck
Yeah.
everybody else.
That's
And
right.
then
Well,
it suddenly became about
that's truly
victimhood.
living, but that's truly living in your own self. And,
Yeah,
that I keep going back to diversity and inclusion has always been a
yeah,
part of the LGBT community. Yet you're
yeah,
not allowed to have diversity in any way, shape, or form. And that's why they don't like people like me and you, because we literally
yes,
show that there is no such thing as diversity and inclusion. That
yeah.
is an
No, you're
actual
so right.
lie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because it's I saw a meme that said something. I can't remember the words exactly, but it was
Mhm.
about how we live in a time where um, our culture is obsessed with diversity and celebrates. It just forces diversity down everyone's throat, except when
Yes.
it comes to diversity of thought. And I was like, oh my god,
That's
that's
right.
it. You can be diverse
That's right.
in all the superficial outer sort of characteristics, but
Yes.
not in here. Then there
That's
you have
right.
to conform, and your whatever identity label is put on
Yes.
you, it comes with a set of beliefs. And if
That's
you
right.
don't fit in with that, you're like a traitor to that group. I've been called, uh, actually, I've been called a traitor to the LGBT, and I've also been called a race traitor as well. And that's the thing, like, because I've spent so much of my time
Sorry.
on social media battling with people trying to tell me it happened after BLM. There
Yeah.
was After
Yeah.
BLM, then there
Yeah.
was the Stop Asian Hate movement, and
Yes.
so the
I
Asian
remember.
American community were like, we're hated too. Like, don't
Don't
forget about
forget
us.
us.
And like I get where it came from, because there was like this kind of
Sure.
post-COVID kind of Wuhan
Oh,
virus kind
that's
of
right. Yeah.
like that kung flu stuff. But um, when I talked about how didn't affect me,
Yeah.
like nobody ever accused me of starting COVID.
Yeah.
Nobody that I know is that stupid, right? So it wasn't a part of my world, and um, there was a hostile reaction for people who were so bought into the notion of Asian oppression that they
Yes.
called me a traitor to my race. And like growing up, I faced so much racism because I
I'm
moved to the
sure.
UK in
Yeah.
the um,
Yeah.
70s, late
Uh-huh.
70s, and in it reached its peak in the early 80s when I lived in a small town. We were one of the only Chinese families in the whole town,
Mhm.
and I got daily racial abuse. I'd be walking down the street, and I had people, like groups of usually men or boys, like "Ah, and like they'd be like
What?
five of them, sometimes adults, and then sometimes they'd be like, fuck off back to China. So
Oh
no
my
reason. Like I'd never met them before in my life. And it also happened to me in school. I'd be like walking down every time I walked down the hallway in school, I knew somebody was gonna racially abuse me. It happened
yeah.
every day. And so
Wow.
I know what racial abuse is. I know what it's
Sure.
like
Mhm.
to be a victim of race hate.
Mhm.
But I don't feel it anymore because
Mhm.
we've come a long way in our society since then.
Yes.
And living in London today, I feel totally accepted. My race is completely irrelevant. But then
Yes.
I have people telling me, everybody hates you. White people will never accept you. And it's like,
What?
no, they have accepted me. Like I remember what it was like when I was the
Yeah.
only Chinese person in my town. It's not
Yeah.
like that anymore. And
Right.
now they find racism. It's like they're seeking it out. And so
Yeah.
there's this thing that a lot of Asian Americans or sort of westernized Asians, like they're not necessarily in America, but it's really big in America, believe that it's racist to say ni hao to a Chinese person or konnichiwa, like that
What?
automatically they're othering you. It's like, why don't you just say hello to me? And like I did a post responding to, there was this girl who she had a meltdown on public transport when somebody said konnichiwa to her, a white guy, right? She said, "What'd you say konnichiwa to me? What'd you say konnichiwa?" And like, she filmed him, and then it got millions of views on TikTok, and people were like, "Let's find out who he is. Let's get him fired from his job." And they were trying to hunt him down, and they tracked down who he was, his name, where he was working. They wanted to get him fired for saying konnichiwa to a
These
girl
people
who
are crazy.
Yeah, and it just means hello. And
I know exactly what it means.
To get some perspective here, like that. Sure, maybe it was a little bit othering, but not serious enough.
Okay, do you know the word intention? I'm sure you do know the word intention. Everything has intentions behind it. If I say that to you, what is my intention? Is it racist, or is it because I really just want to practice my Japanese or my Chinese?
Exactly.
What?
Yeah. And wow. And especially in our generation, right? Like it's always been quite normal for us to try, and if we see someone who is we think that they're Chinese, Japanese, to try and use it as a chance to practice our language, or say hola to Spanish person, and then strike up a conversation about where you're from.
Right.
And stuff like that. It's a curiosity that we had, and especially for people who've traveled a lot and have interacted with other cultures and learned their language. When you see someone from that culture where you visited their country and you fell in love with their culture, it's a natural thing to try to show them right away that
it's respect.
It's respect. But Gen Z now think that it's a racial slur. And I'm sorry, hello. I will never accept that hello is a racial slur. Like, I got told to fuck off back to China. That's a racial slur.
Yes, that is actually.
You've got to differentiate. It's a very different
intention. I've traveled the world, as I told you, everywhere, right? I lived in Mexico for 10 years. I know how to speak Spanish. So I live in California. I live in Los Angeles. We have a lot of Spanish speaking people here, not necessarily from Mexico, but Spanish. So I pretty much always say, things in Spanish to people, and they actually like it. They because then I'll strike up a conversation in Spanish, and they're like, "You know how to speak Spanish?" I'm like, "Totally, dude." You know what I mean?
If you try and speak to a Chinese person in Chinese, they love it generally. If they're like Chinese in China or Asia, and not like a West. I call them boba libs. The boba liberals, the ones that are like, it's like they think they're white, and they it's like they're almost like resentful of the fact that they're not. And so it's the hypersensitivity that immediately they feel othered if you say anything that like if you ask them where they're from, that's another thing. You're not allowed to ask people where they're from anymore, because that's immediately considered a racist sort of othering technique, that you don't see them as, like they say, Asian Americans who are visibly Asian. That if someone asks where they're from, obviously they don't mean like what city do you live in, but what is your ethnicity? What are you Chinese? Are you Japanese?
That's right.
The correct way to ask is, what is your ethnicity, or what's your nationality, or your ancestral heritage? But you don't freak out and punish people for using not using precise terminology, because it's a bit unnatural to say, what is your ancestral heritage, right? So to say where you're from, it's like, that's what they mean. But I see so many people on social media freaking out and like,
I know,
acting like they've just been it's a bit of KKK attack on them. Just natural curiosity. And so I speak up against this. So I spent a lot of time battling this, racial victimhood. And when I say I don't feel like a victim, I don't feel that my ethnicity has interfered with my life in any way. I don't feel less than. And then they're like, no, you are less than. That's
Because
so
they don't
ironic.
like it's the same. We're very much
Mm.
similar. I don't feel
It's
any
parallel to
because
the
I'm trans or
right.
whatever. Like, who the
So I
fuck
feel like
cares?
it's the same forces that have sought to sow division between
That's
the races that have also done the same between the genders and the
yes.
sexualities and just
Yes.
whatever group you can put someone in.
Yes.
It's us versus them, and them
That's
is
right.
everybody else. And whatever they say to you, it comes out of hate and
That's
mistrust
right.
and othering rather than just curiosity.
That's right. That's not how you cure racism, by the way. You don't. I lived in Louisiana. That
Yeah,
was pretty hardcore sometimes. And also, I was there during Hurricane Katrina, and I
yeah,
actually saw actual racism and the situation, how it was handled. It was
yeah.
horrifying, but it was good for me as a white guy to really just see, this because
Mm,
I live in California, which is pretty, chill. But when you're really in it, you get to have a different perspective. That's how you change racism. You don't
yeah,
change racism by telling people that they can't say anything or
yeah,
putting things over here. You actually educate people. It's like educating people on what transsexual is, or
yeah,
educating people like whatever the situation is, what it
yeah,
means to be LGBT. We were so chill, dude, in the LGBT community. People were so cool with trannies. They didn't care. Like everybody,
yeah.
I walked the world, dude. I literally, my
I really
vagina
miss
was
those
out
days.
there.
I miss those days, and I feel like you and I, we're part of a movement to bring back the. I call it, like there's. I see that there's this um what's it called? There's a group called the LGB Alliance, and
Yes,
they're trying to do like they're saying
yes,
bring back LGB without the T. See,
yes.
I don't actually agree with
Yeah,
that.
I
I
know.
think it should be bring back LGBT, but OG LGBT, because I
That's
see
right.
us as one group. I
We
still
are.
like there are people. A lot of people will argue, well, gay, lesbian, gay, bisexual is a sexuality, it's a sexual preference, but
Yeah,
transgenderism is a sexual identity. But like those are just academics, right? It's just
that's right.
it doesn't really matter what it is. It's the
Yeah,
fact that we were very unified prior to
yes.
this psyop that was put on us,
It's a total
and
side.
right.
No, that's
And I feel like
the
I just want to get back to that.
but the LGBT, I understand. I am actually friends with a lot of the people
Yeah,
there
yeah,
because I'm also the guy who likes to try to build bridges, right? So
yeah,
I had
yeah,
to give them their grace and I say, I
yeah,
get why, because the crazy trannies, they're not even trannies, the
yeah,
crazy wingnuts,
yeah,
they actually came and broke our relationship.
yeah,
They
yeah.
ruined our relationship.
Oh, yeah.
It's like cheating. Like they came
And
in and
that
just
was
like
deliberate. I really so,
deliberate,
we both agree on this, that
deliberate.
it's a psyop, because I feel that, um, a lot of people think that because I've questioned those things that I'm like anti-trans or anti-LGBT,
Yeah,
because the identity has become so
that's right.
front and center that you can't question any aspect of it.
Nope.
But any group has to self-reflection is like fundamental in any community. You've got to be able to look at yourself and
That's right.
be accountable for, you embrace all the positives, but if you see something negative in your own group, you've got to be
Yes,
able to call it out.
that's right.
Um and the Chinese, the way they bring up their kids, it's like it tough love is a big part of your upbringing. Like your parents will be really mean to you sometimes because it's in your own interest, and
Yeah.
because you're hardest on those you love. And that's
Yes.
how I feel about the LGBT community. That um um I I love the LGBT and the Q plus, and people think that I don't, but because I question the pronoun thing and the I mean, I don't have a problem with people wanting to use pronouns, but you
Of
can't
course not.
enforce it with
Of
with
course not.
such anger and hate and like calling everyone a Nazi if they don't
Oh
go
my
along with.
god.
So,
Uh,
so when you question these things, they think that you're against the entire
That's
group,
right. That's
and it's
right.
not the case. It's that
That's
you're
right.
actually. I feel like the the mad parts of the community have done so much damage to the what
Yes.
JD Vance called the normal gays. Like
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
gay acceptance has gone down because
Yeah.
we've got these. Some of them are just basically they're just crazy people, right? Who are
Yeah.
who have been put front and center as our
Mhm. Mhm.
voices, our
Yes.
leading influencers, and it's really scared off so many straight people who would have been, and cisgender people, and just
Or
ordinary people, and
were. Do you know if they
parents who would have been
were?
our allies. They were
They
already
were.
women
That's right.
were our biggest allies
That's
as
right.
gays, right?
That's right.
We always had women on our side, and
Yep.
now because of
Not
this whole
anymore.
toilet thing and the boxing thing, they're not. And I
Dude,
feel we as members of the LGBT community we have a responsibility to speak up against this, to say
thank you.
we are still on the same side, us and women and
Thank you.
families and trans. You know, like
Yeah.
I know so many trans people who hate all of this LGBTQ plus alphabet soup
Yeah.
nonsense, but they don't dare say anything. And
Nope.
especially, I think that the last straw was when they put MAP, the minor attracted people, into it as well.
Oh,
It's like
dude.
we've been fighting forever to sever that connection between pedophilia
Yes.
and homosexuality, and now it's back in, and that we're part of the same group. Like, no, thank you.
That's why I told you they're not
No.
they're not really part, and they also put eunuch. They put
Yeah,
eunuch under the W path, like the trans health thing. I
yeah,
mean, eunuch
yeah.
has nothing to do with gender dysphoria. And then what are you
But
talking about? And
eunuch,
then
what is
the
it?
whole thing became a shit
Eunuch, is
show,
that
dude.
someone who's been castrated?
What? That's
What is a
somebody who
eunuch?
just wants to castrate themselves. How does that have to? Why is that
Oh,
like me?
okay.
That's not
Yeah,
like me.
yeah.
I
And
didn't
also
even
there's asexual is in it, right? And then
asexual.
I have a question with that, because you can be celibate. That means you choose not to have sex. But asexual is an amoeba. You
Yes.
reproduce by splitting without having.
Yes.
That's what asexual is. It's a
Yes.
scientific term that means you reproduce asexually. If you
Yes.
choose not to have sex, that doesn't mean you're asexual. You're
People are
celibate.
so dumb, dude. It's cool
It's
them
like
now.
biology, right? They've thrown biology out the window, and a lot of us
That's why.
who were like really into biology and
That's why
well
they did
educated,
it.
no, this is unscientific.
But you know they did. They threw out. They tried to. I would never let them do it. It's why
Yeah,
it's literally Donnie. I've never had to say I'm a female more in my life than I have had in the last 10 years. I'm
yeah,
like, I transitioned, so I never had to say that
yeah,
again. But
yeah,
I had to step up to the plate
yeah,
because these people kept saying, we're really women. Trans women
yeah,
are women. I said, no, you're not. You're a
yeah.
dude who
And
wants
see,
to
I
look like a
feel like
woman.
the fact that it's been so politicized um, has actually it's it's made life so much harder for trans
That's
people than it
right.
was before all this, because like the whole toilet debate, for example,
Yeah.
like prior to this being politicized,
Yeah.
if you look like a woman, you could go into the women's toilet. If you look like a man, you go to the men's toilet.
That's right.
And if you don't pass, you should have the self awareness to know, don't go the toilet. If you got a beard, you don't go to the women's toilet, right? It's
Right
really
on.
simple, really basic. You shouldn't have to prove your gender identity. You just,
That's
and
right.
like, so, the people that I used to hang out in my clubbing days, who were, if they were in their sexy, like,
Yeah.
their full kind of makeup and everything, they went to women's toilet. When
That's
they're
right.
having a boy day, they go to the men's toilet. Like, you just you judge where you would fit in. But
That's
then
right.
because we've seen in the media all these extreme cases, like men who are actually um, um, sexual predators,
That's right.
abusing their right to go into these spaces. It's
That's right.
ruined it for all the ordinary trans people
That's
who
right.
wanted to go unnoticed. And that's
That
the whole
I mean,
point of being of transition, right? To not be noticed and to
like
live like,
literally pass. So I always use the men's room. Clearly, look at me,
yeah,
dude. Okay, so I
yeah.
don't have
And I
a
will always
penis.
support you using the men's room, and the trans women I know, I will always support them using the women's.
I
But
could
now
never
it's all
use
of a
the
sudden it's
woman's
like
room.
an issue that didn't
I could
exist.
never, dude. I can't use the women's room. All my ID says male. Blah blah blah. Anyway, that
Yeah,
being said, I didn't
yeah,
prance around the men's room showing my body off. Right? I
yeah,
always but I'm telling you, I traveled the world, Donnie,
yeah,
and men were so cool with me. They'd be like, "Oh, dude, right
yeah,
on." Like because I wasn't flashing and I wasn't like
yeah,
shoving it in their face and like
yeah, yeah,
you have to have sex with me because
yeah,
because I am a man. Like you know what I mean?
yeah.
It's just you're right.
Yeah,
It went
so
off the
yes. And
deep end.
I remember seeing a headline from, this was one of the craziest things, where Stonewall
Oh,
said that if a
wow.
lesbian refuses to have sex, with a trans woman who has a penis, then that's called sexual racism. I was like, wow. So we're saying lesbians who are lesbians because they prefer badge now have to take dick, or
That's
else they're
right.
a
That's
sexual
right.
racist.
That's right. They're making because that's a misogyny. That is like the epitome of misogyny. Because remember,
Right.
trans women are not women; they are biological males who are coming to this in a socialized. I was socialized as a female; they were
Yeah.
socialized as male. You come to things differently when you're socialized as a child. That
Yeah.
being said, they don't know how to get rid of that misogyny. If they would get rid of the misogyny, all the women would be super chill with them. They'd be like, whatever, like we get it, but they're total misogynist, weirdo rapists. It's crazy.
They're not. There's a group of trans women that are not trans. They're just
No,
men who dress up as women to take to take advantage of the access they have as a result of that. And we got to separate that. And but the fact that we haven't been able to challenge that question, and then we got called transphobic for it.
I know.
It's just set the entire trans movement back by decades, right? And so I feel like we have a duty to say we don't support this. And I just think all the gay and lesbian and trans people who don't support this should have the courage to speak up.
Yes.
And I feel we've been called transphobes and traitors to LGBT, but we're actually flying the flag for LGBT by challenging things that we see that's wrong with the movement.
That's very powerful what you just said. And the problem, people get scared. I get it. I feel for them. So, sometimes you have to be the first person to break that sort of hole, if that makes sense. You have to be the first person to punch through so that it can start to break. Because if somebody doesn't punch a hole through that, it's just never going to break. So, people like us, it's gaining momentum, Donnie. There are more and more of us.
I'm seeing so much change. I remember 2 years ago when I spoke about it, I did one post that went viral and I got swamped with thousands of hate comments. It was so horrible. And at the time, I cared what people say, and I was up all night just replying to them all, trying to defend it. But I don't bother anymore. But I've seen those. I don't get the hate comments anymore.
Yeah, me neither.
And I think that's a huge turning point.
Huge. You should read comments on my YouTube channel. I very rarely have anyone come and say anything to me. I have the most insane amount of love on this channel. It's really insane.
It's wonderful that has happened, because at the time it felt like, okay, is this how it's going to be now? Just like, and it was terrifying to see, and it's been so wonderful to see we turn the corner.
Well, what's so, I think, wonderful is we're seeing each other. And, I've been reading the comments, everybody. I just been focused on Donnie, but I do appreciate you all so much to really be here.
Oh my God, I forgot that there's comments.
Me and Donnie are like super into it, but everyone is so sending beautiful, amazing messages. And, this is how we're going to get back to, not only on some level I believe we're going to save the LGBT community, but also, just humanity. We've got to get back to a sense of understanding that people are people. And as long as you're not doing weird stuff to kids and animals and, like that kind of stuff, like just, can we just stop telling people how to live their lives? And it used to be like that. And now all of a sudden our community is telling other people how to live their lives, when that was literally the way it was for us. People were telling us how to live our lives back in the day. It's like, then just like the political parties have switched, so has this narrative has switched. And we cannot let that happen for the sake of our future LGBT young people. And also just because I want to, like you, I want to coexist in the world, dude. I don't want to be trans. I just want to be buck.
Yeah. That's as simple as that. And I just
thank you
that we it's been great to see that since, I feel that just since very recently, since Trump's victory, people have had more confidence to be able to say, I don't know about this, and without feeling like they're the only one, because we were told, we were made to feel like anyone who questioned any of this was a small minority,
That's
and we were
right.
ostracized. But actually, it turns out we're not. But we're part of the silent majority.
Yes, that's right. And here we
That's
are.
why the election went the way it did. I feel like there were so many reasons that people voted that way, that
That's right.
for their entire life they had never voted right before.
Never.
And but it's just gotten too crazy. And
I don't feel embarrassed for who I voted for, number one. Number two, I feel that there's a reason why that person won. Pretty much all of America, dude.
I don't
all of
expect
America.
him to save the world either. But
No,
because I don't place much expectation on any one leader. But
that's right.
It's a change in the mood that
that's right.
You can challenge things now. You can ask questions, and it doesn't mean that you're like it's difference between critique and criticism and hate. They're not all the same thing.
They're not.
So we should be able to critique without it being.
That's right. Being like it was just mind blowing. What happened was mind blowing. But I think the bubble is bursting, dude. And everybody follow Donnie. I'm gonna go and put your TikTok, and you can tell us
Donnie Wong 72, and it's Donnie with an IE, not a Y. So that's my TikTok. That's right. And my Instagram, I'm 72.0 because I got banned on Instagram, so I had to start another one, 72.0. And I'm also on YouTube, Donnie Wong 72.
And then wait, what was TikTok again?
Donnie Wong 72.
72, right. Okay. Please, everybody, follow him. His voice is extremely important in this fight for all of us, not just LGBT, but really just helping to bring back a narrative that needs to be brought back. And I think not only that, you'll just love his stuff because he's really humorous. You're amazing, dude. You're amazing. And you're
and then also I have a different, my other persona, the OF.
Okay.
Friend.
Oh, the OF, right.
Chinese Daddy is my
Chinese Daddy. That's excellent. Okay, friend. Great. Thanks for spending the day with me. I do appreciate
Thank you so much.
It's
been so wonderful. I can't believe how quickly that hour flew by.
I told you. I already told you it was going to be, because I knew that we were going to have, like, we could literally be stuck in a bar for 5 hours.
Oh, I know. But it's, I knew that I would have so much to talk about with you. And it's so funny because it's like, I can talk to you having never met you before for hours, and yet there's people I've known all my life that I'm like, oh, I can't talk about this, I can't talk about that. Okay, let's just talk about the weather. Let's just talk about. Do you know what I mean?
No, I know, but doesn't that scare you? It scares me because it's like, how did our friends get so captured? It's just sad to me. But again, it's a turning point in our lives and our age and all of those things, and we learn from that. And hopefully, our friends will, come back around.
I think they will. I think.
I do.
The more we do this kind of thing, this is why we do what we do.
That's right. That's exactly right, dude. And so with that, you guys all have a beautiful day, and I'll gonna release something awesome tomorrow for Valentine's Day, and that we can all laugh at, because some of this shit just needs to be laughed at. And everyone have a happy Valentine's Day, and I'll see you guys all on the next one. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.